beautiful leaf passing away as it fell off plant about an hour ago. A symbol of transient life, a beautiful symbol. Perhaps a bit of a cliche even. Anyway, I couldn't resist using it. Or the Brad Melder trio there. Hope you're enjoying that. And here's part 2 of the Word of God video on retrieving the victims of violent crime. As I said in part 1, the next one's a little more somber, a little more bloody, unfortunately. But, you know, they're all tragedies one way and another. This was a family, mother, 3 children, and the father. The father in a very tenuous state, probably extreme paranoia, aggravated by who knows what. But he stabbed them all and then stabbed himself. And it was reported in the papers here, and I took an interest. And it's many years ago now, but I won't mention any names. The family was standing in a little group in their astral version of their home, and I could see the heap of bodies just a little behind them. I should also mention that when I did this retrieval, I went backwards in time to just after the committing of the crime. And this, again, is another little trick that you learn along the way. You don't have to go backwards in time. You can go parallel through time, if you like, and arrive at a time when the earthbound spirits are perhaps wondering what is going on because they feel like they've been there a long time. Their perception of time is a mess. They have no perception of time, or very little. But you can also go right to the immediate moments after the tragedy / disaster / accident. And that's what I did in this case. I found the family grouping standing there, introduced myself. The father seemed to be the spokesman, the leader, and he seemed to be quite aware of their death status, shall we say. I offered to show them around the afterlife. Would they like to go? And he said right away, would it be a good place for his children? Interesting remark. I said yes, it would very definitely be a good place for his children, and was intrigued that he was still concerned for their welfare, although I didn't mention that. Perhaps his killing of them was his twisted way of knowing that they'd be looked after. Would there be any of their ethnic group in the heaven that I was taking them to? Yes, there would be, no problem there. And that seemed to reassure him. Don't think he liked being in Canada that much. Perhaps wished he had never arrived. The wife was standing just behind him, holding the youngest, and the 2 middle children were standing beside her. And one of the little children asked me if there'd be any guinea pigs in heaven. And I said, yes, there would definitely be guinea pigs in heaven. There would be all sorts of pets. He seemed pleased about that. I asked them to stand close together, put my arms around them. You can extend your arms in the other world. Another magical act, thing that you couldn't do here. I've stretched my arms around fairly large groups of people at different times. And when you've formed a sort of band of energy around the group, then you execute your intent to move on, to shift levels, and you do so within a second. And we're on a grassy slope of the park on focus 27, looking down, trees behind us. And I say to them, well, here we are. How'd you like it? And they look around. They seem impressed. And I ask silently for some greeters, and the same greeters as last time show up. And they again bring their child, which is probably a very smart thing to do in the circumstances. Greeters are like that. They seem to anticipate situations very well. And their child asks these children if they'd like to go running with him in that sort of naive, enthusiastic way that children have, where 1 second is completely separated from the seconds before, and everything seems like an eternal moment, which is perhaps the way we all should live. And off they go running. I tell the greeters in a fairly formal fashion that I have brought these fine people to meet them and would they please take care of them and show them around. And they say, yes, certainly, Gordon, we will. No mention is made of the crime scene or anything of that nature. And I can see the wife is still very young at heart and timid and hanging on to the baby for dear life. And the father's standing there, trying to look like he's still in control, I think, but, being fairly meek and accepting of what's being done for them. And I say, well, my job's over, and please enjoy your new journey. And I say goodbye, and off I go. And you may be surprised that one was so simple. I was myself. There's just no telling how simple or difficult a retrieval will be until you actually do it. Now, the next one was a mother in the depths of a postpartum depression, a depression that would definitely be called madness in my books. And she had exhibited tendencies in the days before the crime, and had somehow managed to grab her baby and run off and jump in front of a subway train and kill them both. So when I discovered her, the baby was already moved on, I suspect. She was still caught up in her internal craziness, and sort of saying over and over again, I killed my baby, I killed my baby, oh my God, I killed my baby. And I come up to her and ask her why she did that in a fairly calm voice. And she looks at me and says, so that he wouldn't have to die. And I think that remark alone will give you a good idea of where she was coming from. Definitely frantic. I told her she wasn't evil, but she was suffering from an organic condition caused by giving birth. And certainly that her daily professional status as a counselor with depressed people had built up an energy of depression within her and wasn't helping her. She fell at my feet, or rather sort of flung herself at my feet, sobbing uncontrollably, and I'm reaching down trying to lift her up and make her, slightly calmer, which is not easy to do, but somehow I seem to be able to get her slightly calmer. And suddenly she says, oh, I guess there must be an afterlife, because here I am and here you are. And here's me, and I definitely deserve to die. And I ask her if she'd like to go to see the afterlife, and she says, yes, I'd love to. She suddenly seems very keen. So I have her hold on to me. She's still sobbing a bit, and then we move on. I execute the intent to change levels, and we do. And she's greeted and by the female half of the couple from before and taken away. And I say goodbye, and it's another fairly